Hello, assalamu alaikum everybody. Hope you're all safe, sound, and healthy. And I'm back to raging. I'm really back to. I mean, seriously, trust this government, this establishment, the system or lack thereof. Trust the society, and then trust the climate, the weather, to just get me back to where I began when I came into this hellhole, that rage within me where I feel like I should destroy everything and everyone in my way, especially this country and its people. And I'll tell you why again. Now, if you remember my last podcast, I talked about I'm hoping to make this podcast short because seriously, I'm not in the mood to talk, but you never know. I may start ranting. But okay, if you remember my last podcast, I actually talked about how in the West, the high crime rate of violence against women, the perpetrators are actually Caucasian males, and how the lowest portion of that you will find Asians and all, right? And or Hispanics or whatever, like non-whites. And then coming back to our own country, where I said that okay, now let's in our country, as I said, and in India, crime rate is increasing, and the most sadistic, the most brutal, the most deranged kind of crime rates, which you only heard about in the West. And that even basically you blamed it on the Western, especially the American, as I said, the British especially. This happened like literally more than 20 years ago when I was living in England, and crime rates, delinquent oriented or juvenile delinquent oriented crime rates had begun. And people were blaming the American media, very rightly so, for that. Because a trend, again, I've said this like 1,000 times, as writers, as media people, as anybody related to, connected with, concerned with the media, we all know that media is essentially soft power. Okay, it is through media that we always bring about change in a society through soft power. I've actually done a podcast particularly on how in Thailand, the LGBTQ community that dominated the Thai media used the Thai media to push the government towards legitimizing gay marriages and accommodating gays and freedoms and all of that, right? Although fun fact, the vast majority of the Thai population are actually very, very anti LGBTQ, because again, this is a very small minority, but the media exploded it and made it an international theme where it seemed to portray Thailand to be a very LGBTQ friendly or exclusive place, which obviously it wasn't, but they were actually pushing for laws to make it acceptable, or to legalize gay marriage, right? Which obviously they did. As I've said many times in many different podcast episodes of mine and in many different ways, we use the media to not just show the world what it is, but most of the time, 9 times out of 10, we're using the media to educate the world or to desensitize the world, which is our audience basically, or the world at large, towards certain themes. So, for example, as I said, and once I even quoted this before, that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that there are certain sins or certain crimes that you should never talk about openly, because when they remain hidden, when they remain covered up, then actually they remain contained. It's literally like containing a disease, okay? And when they are exposed, they do more harm than good, because if you think you're doing your due diligence or you're doing your duty towards the society by letting them know that, oh, this thing exists, no, you're not actually. What you're doing is letting the society know that, oh, they can do this. Oh, this is possible. Oh, this can happen. You understand? So when extenuating circumstances leading to weird-ass crimes, let's put it this way, when you start exposing them, then they become from a very small contained number to a very large part of the society, and so crime rate grows. Why? Because you are constantly exposing the crime without emphasizing on the accountability or the punishment. And especially in media like Pakistan's, this is the most irresponsible act they've kept on and on committing, where they started exposing more and more of sadistic, brutal crimes, especially to do with rapes and to do with raping minors and to do with child pornography and all. They thought that they were doing their due diligence, warning the society and this and that, but no. No, first of all, the way the news was broadcast was nowhere near responsible. It wasn't. It was not. It did not even hint at responsibility for, towards society. No. And number two, in all of these, most of these cases, except for two of them, which obviously the society, the country raised their voices and they made a huge hue and cry about it. And so, finally, you managed to get a resolution of the perpetrator getting caught. But in one of the cases, the perpetrators were caught, but they were sentenced to death only to be overturned in the next trial. And then in the other case, the alleged perpetrator, the recent most case, the alleged perpetrator was just killed without due process, without a trial, without anything, by the CCD, which is the task force, the police task force that Maryam Nawaz created, that answers only to her, and it is the same task force that was responsible for a lot of other crimes committed under directly Asim Munir's supervision in the past. And this task force is basically supposed to be above the law. Literally, it's above the law. They have been given the free hand to take the law into their hands. This has actually increased, as we can see, it has increased lawlessness, it has increased crime, it has increased, because now we do not know if they're just killing innocent people, because, hey presto, 8 out of 10 cases of them killing people came out to be them taking money from one party to eliminate another party. So there's no justice there, there's no crime there, there's no law there, there's no law enforcement there. When I listen to vloggers or when I listen to anchors talk about law enforcement, I don't know if they are just saying it because they, like me, also don't know what else to call them, because for the lack of a word, we have to call them law enforcement agencies, but the truth is they're not law enforcement agencies. If anything, they're breaking the law. Instead of enforcing the law, our army, our police, our intelligence community, they are breaking the law. They have created lawlessness. Again, if you listen to some of my old podcasts, you would know how much I talked about this, that when they come, these things will happen. And as you can see, all of it is happening. I talked about lawlessness, I talked about high crime rate, I talked about high street crime rate, I talked about terrorism. I said expect every single one of these things to occur, and occur at an unusually high percentage, because that is the only way they can maintain control. So what are we understanding from this high crime rate is that the police are always involved. You understand? I'm telling you, if you had any idea of the way Punjab police especially works, you would know that there is no criminal that can walk the street of Punjab without the blessing of the Punjab police. The CCD is an unveiled, an open, exposed arm of what the Punjab police always was. Okay, it's just that the CCD is now allowed to openly show what they are and how they work, but the truth is the Punjab police has always worked like that, but behind closed doors, pretending due diligence, pretending that there's accountability and that they're answerable, but in the form of CCD there is no pretense. They are answerable directly to Maryam Nawaz, and they will go around killing anybody and everybody as long as her hand is on top of them, her blessing is with them. And obviously it will remain, because behind that even is Asim Munir's blessing. So again, why is Asim Munir's blessing there? Why is her blessing there? Because, as I said, the more the crime rates, the more chaos, the more in the name of bringing order to chaos they can maintain control. And the more diversions and misdirections, again, if you're too busy thinking about safety, and if you're too busy thinking about crimes, and if you're too busy thinking about how you're going to get through your everyday life, then you will not look at what they are doing behind all of that smokescreen. You will not see that, although you can see, but you're too busy taking care of all the other obstacles coming there throwing your way, to actually put a hand on to them, to grab them and ask them, how is it that they're selling your whole country bit by bit? What they're doing in Balochistan, for example, where they keep on blaming India. Okay, fine. Now here's a question. If India is to be blamed, and we know that India has always had a hand in many of the legit terrorist activities that have happened in Pakistan. Now remember, as I said, no terrorist can also very easily accomplish a task that it has set to accomplish in any other country without having an insider, again in the form of, you got it, yes, law enforcement agencies or somebody in the government or somebody in the intelligence community. You're getting my point here? Similarly, in India too, 9 times out of 10, the so-called terrorism that they're having, they're in cahoots. Even if it is a legit, sometimes if you do manage to say that, okay, fine, we agree that there is a legit terrorism outfit going on there, but again, upon further investigation, you will find out that this could not have happened without the blessing of the authorities in India. And similarly, it's not happening without the blessing of the authorities in Pakistan. Again, if Pakistan is blaming India for all the terrorism that is taking place in Balochistan or in Karachi, Sindh, then tell me one thing. Why are they attacking Afghanistan? Why are they being such cowards? Why are they attacking Afghanistan? Why aren't they attacking India? Remember, India did not even have proof. And in fact, later on, it was proved that Pakistan was actually not involved in the Kashmir incident in India, where they were trying so hard to blame Pakistan for the terrorist incident, and it came out to be that it was a false flag incident for the election purposes, and it came out to be that even about 65 to 70% of the Indian population did not even believe the government's allegations on Pakistan, and still India, without any process, without any due process, without any SOPs, they just attacked Pakistan, if you remember. And then there was all this thing of us downing their Rafales, right? So yeah, why isn't Pakistan attacking India? Well, obviously they shouldn't attack India because, again, there is no proof. But also, why are they attacking Afghanistan? You know, it's the same, it's exactly the same. Again, I keep on and on telling you, from every single move that this government and this army has been making, you can see the Zionist hand. You can see that they're going by the Zionist playbook. Basically, they're going by the CIA playbook. They're going by Mossad's playbook, okay? So, for example, look at America. America blamed Saudi for the false flag operation of the 9/11 false flag operation, which the whole world now knows beyond a doubt that 9/11 was indeed a false flag operation. And so now, imagine, they blamed Saudi Arabia for it. But if they blamed Saudi for it, why is it that the only plane that the American authorities allowed to leave the country immediately was bin Laden's plane? Again, why? You know, if he was indeed the culprit, if he was indeed the perpetrator, why allow him and his people to leave? His plane was the only plane that was allowed to leave. Obviously, because they were part of it all. I mean, because it was the Americans' own false flag operation that they did, and they were going to scapegoat bin Laden because obviously he is ex-CIA. Thank you very much. He's one of those hired mercenary outfits that worked in the Balkan regions during the war as under the CIA umbrella. So here we are. You have a former CIA agent who is now being scapegoated, and and after that, you begin a whole narrative. Now again, if Saudi Arabia was to blame for the 9/11 charade, then why did Pakistan bear the brunt of it? Why did Iraq bear the brunt of it? Why did the African belt of Muslim countries bear the brunt of it? Why did Afghanistan bear the brunt of it? You see the point here, right? Why is it that every country apart from Saudi Arabia, every other country apart from Saudi Arabia, got hit by the 9/11 aftermath? And why is it that Pakistan was pulled into that war, which was never our war? And why is it that we lost so many innocent lives, and yet we were still branded terrorists, even though we were actually victims of the American staged terrorism? Again, that was supposed to be done to Saudi. Why were we bearing the consequence? If indeed Saudi was behind it, if indeed Bin Laden was behind it, why was Pakistan the country that had to bear the most loss? Why did Pakistan pay the price for another country's doing? Nobody understood that, right? Nobody. Tell me. Why, and why is it that people suddenly forgot that Pakistan was a South Asian country? And it was since then that the world started thinking that Pakistan was Middle East. Why? In which world? Like, seriously, don't you people do geography? Don't you people learn anything at school? Well, obviously not from the way we can see things, but again, so yeah. Okay, coming back to the point at hand, because I seem to have completely digressed. The point at hand is crime rate, okay? The child pornography thing also, which I keep reminding you, if you remember, if you dig back to the whole scandal, it came out to be that a minister was directly involved behind it all. He was the main person behind the whole outfit, and he again was very, very closely connected to Nawaz Sharif. So he was basically part of the PMLN party. Again, remember, Zardari and Nawaz Sharif, these two families, these are the mafia, okay? You have the Punjab mafia, which is the Sharif family, and you've got the mafia in Karachi, Sindh, which is Zardari family. Obviously, in Sindh, Karachi, you had two mafia outfits that were always fighting each other, which is why Karachi was never at peace. You had the MQM and you had PPP, right, Zardari. So, but now Zardari has overtaken everything. So MQM is like sidelined. And now you've got Zardari, who is the main mafia, in Karachi, Sindh. Not just Karachi, but the whole of Sindh. MQM was basically in Karachi and it was contained within Karachi. But Zardari's reach was always throughout Sindh, right? So similarly, every time there was a crime activity or a terrorist activity in KPK, it was understood that the Punjab mafia of Nawaz Sharif, it was his mafia that was, connected to that crime or connected to that terrorism. So now again, understand, it was Maryam Nawaz herself who chanted, ye jo dehshatgardi hai, iske piche vardi hai, right? That this terrorism that we see, there's a uniform behind it, right? Well, you said it, we didn't. Obviously, you know the truth because you've been using the uniforms, and the uniforms themselves have been using you too. So you both have a parasitic, symbiotic relationship with each other where you use each other to fulfill whatever it is that you need fulfilled. So the army always needs to have chaos in regions that have a population that they can easily handle. Let's be honest. Balochistan may be the biggest province of Pakistan square foot wise or square miles wise, right? But population wise, it is the smallest. It has the smallest number of population in the whole country, you can say. And Kashmir is very small square footage wise, but it has a large enough population. But nothing beats the population of Punjab, obviously, which basically makes 40+% of the whole population. And then you have Karachi, which according to their own, I don't know where they bring these statistics from, but according to them, it seems like every week 100,000 more people are born, but okay. Point being that the two very large populace that you have are within Punjab and Karachi, not even Sindh, but Karachi. Sindh is almost empty as well. So the whole population of Sindh seems to concentrate in Karachi. And in Punjab, you have a huge population. And so you have a very small population compared to these two. You have a very, and that is why it's so easy for Zardari to control Sindh, by the way. Okay, so put it that way. So you have Balochistan, you have KPK. KPK has a pretty good sizable population, but again, compared to Punjab, it's controllable. So KPK, Balochistan, Gilgit-Baltistan, Kashmir, these are places that the army can control easily. And why are these places, despite the fact that these places are actually the safest, with this almost zero crime rate, okay, and they're the most peaceful, the most serene, and the most, seriously, the most out of this world places. It's as if you're not in Pakistan. It's as if you've gone to a completely different country, especially when you go to Gilgit-Baltistan, which is a fact because Gilgit-Baltistan was indeed an independent princely state once upon a time. So when you go to Balochistan, or when you go to KPK, and when you go to Gilgit-Baltistan and Kashmir, it's an out of this world experience, and they are, even Europe and America is not even half of it, seriously. Okay, this is how safe, how peaceful, and how amazing these places are. And why is it that it's always these places that the army always wishes to go and screw up? Because of their borders. Yeah. Unfortunate for them that their borders seem to touch along all those countries that the Americans are interested in. You have Iran, you have China, you have, you even have, basically, you have India on this side, which obviously America's not interested on this side because India is here to do all the dirty job. But you've got main problem here is China and Iran. And then, of course, we've got the path through to Central Asia, Russia. So there again, the problem is that, as I've said a million times, Pakistan is the Asian padlock. Pakistan is the padlock of Asia. We are unfortunately sitting in such a sensitive geopolitical, strategic geopolitical position where we cannot get away from these scheming bitches, okay, who want to wage wars. Okay, we are literally in their way. Okay, so everybody needs Pakistan. Some countries need Pakistan for their safety, and some countries need Pakistan to break down the safety of other countries. It's as simple as that. And Pakistan being an aholic country that it is, and I'm swearing here, I'm not giving it some sort of a, So Pakistan being the bitches of the riches, where that it is, being filled with traitors, and having been hijacked from the very day that it was made. Instead of leveraging its position, Pakistan is kowtowing to these people as if Pakistan needs these people. But the truth is, Pakistan does not need any of these countries, but all of these countries need Pakistan. And again, as I said, instead of leveraging our position, Pakistan is literally handing itself out to others, just like that, just dashing itself out to others. Why? Because Pakistan was hijacked the very day it was founded. Simple as. And so now when you look at the crime rates, when you look at, again, the increasing crime rates, understand one thing, that nobody can commit a crime so openly in this country where you are literally being in the chokehold of two mafia families and the biggest, hound dogs of all hound dogs, the army, the establishment. So you are literally being in the chokehold. You're literally being strangled by these three. And you actually think that people would dare come out and commit crimes in the streets? No. Put two and two together. Do the math. Okay? Yeah. These crimes are being encouraged. Okay? And I wouldn't be surprised if some of these crimes actually are not even existent. I'm sorry to say that, but the way I'm looking at things, and the way, because I predicted them long before they even happened, I can even assure you that many of these crimes, not many, but okay, let's just say that especially the much hyped crimes, yeah, they are too fishy. The way they're hyped, the way the criminals are immediately caught, the way the criminals are immediately killed without being put to trial, very fishy. Very, very fishy. As I said, it's not that crimes are not taking place. No, it's just that the crimes that are actually taking place, you're not finding out about them. That's what I'm saying. Crime rates have increased, yes. For political reasons, yes. For control reasons, yes. In order to maintain a fascist hold on the country, yes. In order to maintain authoritarian government, yes. In order to maintain dictatorship, yes. In order to restrict the freedom of this country so that it can be completely torn to pieces and sold out to whoever is the biggest contender, yes. So crime rate, what is the first thing that comes into mind when you talk about a banana republic? Remember, even Imran Khan kept on saying they're going to turn this country into a banana republic. So it means even he saw it. Even he saw what we were saying, and that is that they are going to turn this country into a banana republic. We're not saying that this country is becoming a banana republic or it will become more. No. We're saying that they are going to turn it into a banana republic. No country becomes a banana republic on its own. It is turned into one, okay? It is pushed towards there by design, okay? So, for example, okay, let's look at America. America is in default. It has been in default. America's been bankrupt for a little over 2 decades now. But are they letting the world find out that America is bankrupt? No. But Pakistan, even if it just verges, just steers right about, and they're like, oh, Pakistan is going to be bankrupt. Oh, Pakistan's, and then again, how is it that Pakistan gets back into the fold? Yes, whenever somebody from within your government or basically from within your establishment suddenly decides to do business, as I said. Now, so again, look at it this way. Trump is also very openly, very blatantly going against the rules and the laws and the norms of the American political system, wherein he is very openly doing business with an illegitimate government of Pakistan. It's not an elected government, and in fact the person with whom even he's doing business is not even technically part of the government, but he's in the army. So how is it that somebody who's in your army, who doesn't even have any official designation in the political forum, he is basically just a field marshal, he's basically just an army chief, and you're actually signing an MOU with him, and then you take away millions and millions, 500 million, I think it was, just recently when he, put it down after the whole fiscal thing. And then at the end of the day, you're finding out that, that Asim Munir literally basically just sold out again, and, Pakistan's interests without getting any benefit whatsoever. Any benefit. And again, whose money is it that they're playing with? Our money. It's our money. Is that same precious money that you're stealing from us, saying that you have to pay the IMF? Again, why is the IMF even asking us for that money? Even the IMF is aware of the fact that that money did not even reach this country. So yeah, this is exactly that thing which Imran Khan very, very openly talked about, if you remember, in many of his speeches, in his international speeches on international forums, even in front of the United Nations. He talked very openly about how they literally encourage corruption, the IMF and the Western governments, that how they literally encourage and legitimize corruption of these governments by letting them get through all of this, and then by letting them move their money into their countries or other islands or other countries, and actually helping them maintain that wealth out of that country. So, he very openly talked about it. And it was so well received by the rest of the world. If you remember, he got almost a standing ovation, really, for that speech of his, where he called everybody out on this legitimizing of corrupt politicians by the Western governments and the Western authorities and the international organizations. So here we are again. Crime rate. Okay, so the reason I am so peed off, and again, as I said, anybody who knows me knows that the only reason I always say is keep me away from politics is because if I ever decided to become part of politics, if I ever decided to enter the government, the first thing I would do was probably pass a law to neuter all male infants. Okay? That is how sick and tired I am of the men, not just in Pakistan and India, but the whole world, but especially obviously because the only thing I can do is in my own country. So yeah, that is how sick and tired I am of the men of this country, because I do feel that the men need to be neutered in order for us to be able to re-educate them, and to bring them back to their OG humble roots and remind them of their actual status in life. Yeah, that hyped up status that men seem to have gotten out of nowhere. Basically, again, you blame the mothers. I'm sorry, but if you look at a patriarch society, please do not forget to look at the mothers, because 9 times out of 10 it is the mothers who hype their sons into thinking that they're gods or demigods. And it is the mother, and as I said, it's because, again, if you look at even medieval societies of the West, mothers were essentially the enemies of their daughters, right? Rivals of their daughters. And fathers, obviously, they didn't give a hoot about. I think men in general are just not very sincere towards either their wives or their children. I think it's very rare to find men who are truly sincere towards their families, because the men are not, they've not gone through that parasitic relationship, with children that women go through. So women have those parasites grow within them, and then those parasites turn into boys or girls as they are expelled out of the woman's body, right? So yeah, so maybe that's why women have that attachment with their children that men do not. But it is, again, as I said, this is where the Oedipus complex comes from, as you can say, psychologically speaking. It's because it is obviously very, very inherent that opposites attract. In other words, the opposite gender will always be more sympathetic towards each other as opposed to the same gender. That is the normal, natural phenomena as we know it. So, for example, fathers are going to be harsher towards their sons, and mothers are going to be harsher towards their daughters, and fathers will be a little more sympathetic towards their daughters, and mothers will be very, very sympathetic towards their sons, and vice versa. So, that is why even in our society especially, you will always see how sons are always talking about their mothers, as if their mothers are the greatest things on earth, but you will never actually hear a daughter talk much about her mother. You will hear a daughter talk about her father, maybe, as if he is her support system. And you would hear a son talk about his mother as if she's his support system. And so, this thing that you will never hear a girl say, Mama Thandiyan Chawa. You will hear a boy say that, but you will never hear a girl say that, because to a girl, to be very honest, her mother is not her support system, as I said. So yeah, there is this kind of a kind of a minute Oedipus complex going on here, between mothers and sons. So mothers are always going to be very attached to their sons, and they will spoil their sons. And that's why I say mothers are to be blamed, basically, for continuing patriarchy, okay? Fathers not so much. Fathers, obviously, because they're males, so they will go on their own. But as we know, mothers make and break societies. And Islam, why is it very important for a woman to be educated? Because a woman educates her family and a woman educates society at large. So if a woman is not educated and socially aware, she cannot give a good upbringing to her children. You understand? It's a fact, okay? Let's just face it, it's a fact. In such societies, especially, again. So mothers, I'm sorry, are to be blamed. 100% mothers are to be blamed for the way our men have turned out to be. You know, if mothers had sat their sons down and taught them about how to treat other women or how to treat other people or how to stay humble or how to stay within their limits and their boundaries, about discipline, about, responsibility, about accountability, yeah, I doubt that our men would turn out to be the a-holes that they are. Again, this is that same problem that we keep on and on talking about as to how we've been stripped off of our Islamic system. Because the Islamic system, and this is also something I mentioned many times, that it's not the women who have a problem with the Sharia. Actually, it's the men. Yeah, it's the men. Because if you bring in honest to God, unfiltered Sharia, the Islamic system, if you bring in the pure, unfiltered, unfettered Islamic system, then men do not have much to gain. Yeah. I'll give you an example. This is an example we keep on and on giving, is how the West borrowed or stole the Islamic system and used it to make themselves civilized. So what is the West, the civilized part of the West, as opposed to the America that we have today? When Trump said that he was going to remove the Islamic influences from America, and everybody applauded him. What did he do? He started by trying to remove women's equal rights and then their right to abortion, and then by treating women as sexual objects or secondary citizens. And then he moved on to start stripping people out of their social welfare and out of healthcare and out of all these things which are supposed to be part and parcel of a Muslim system, of an Islamic system, right? So yeah, look at the difference here. Where the Islamic system rests, you will see people living a pretty good life. Look at the Middle East. Despite the fact that we do not consider the Middle East as a truly Muslim society, but they have definitely imposed a huge part of the Islamic system within their society. So there is welfare, there is an organized system, there is a system set in which they know their limitations. The Americans and the British, they show their ignorance whenever they snort about how the Middle East never give refuge to other Muslim refugees or non-Muslims even, and that they don't give people immigration and they don't give people PR and this and that. Well, they kind of do give people PR, in case you didn't know that, but it's a different sort of a status that you hold. But they don't give people, the immigration and passports and all. Yeah, you know why? Because in case your stupid ass minds didn't register the fact, Middle East is essentially a desert. The Middle Eastern countries, they have built their whole urban life on a desert. That means they have to artificially sustain life. And they are already scrambling and constantly thinking of new ways to create a longer sustaining system. That is why they're always coming up with new, even more expensive projects. And that is why Saudi Arabia started this huge ass project and then decided to scale it down because it was getting very difficult for them to do it. It's because they realized the difficulty level. They realized the fact that it is still not so easy, even today with all the technology and everything, to be able to sustain a large community while keeping it environmentally friendly. So they are essentially in an environment crisis. and they're trapped in that loophole or that bubble, you can say. And there is no other way for them, really, because if they want to maintain this lifestyle, or if they want to maintain an urban lifestyle, they have to literally artificially sustain that lifestyle. There's again water scarcity that you have to look into, and then there is the climate, because urbanization actually ends up making the desert hotter than it normally would be, obviously, because of all the technology that they have to use in order to, again, I would say, artificially sustain life. That is why you see all the central cooling everywhere, and you see, centralized, sort of an urbanization, and that, or urban planning. It's because they have to think in a way that's completely out of the box. So it is an environmental disaster or an environmental crisis on its own, that they're trying to look for different ways to make a lesser carbon footprint. But again, it's not very sustainable from where they stand there, and you expect them to throw that very fragile, that very delicately balanced, the infrastructure, and just throw it all to chaos by allowing people that they cannot accommodate in, by giving every Tom, Dick, and Harry of immigration or refuge. No, it's not just going to collapse their system. It's going to literally end up killing all the new immigrants and the refugees, because how will they sustain them? How will they sustain their lifestyle? They're not living in an environment that is conducive to societal development, or to working aggressively on aggressive urbanization, let's put it this way, which is something that countries like ours would do. We have sprawling cities and spontaneous urban plannings to meet needs, and we end up causing even a bigger environmental disaster, because we're cutting down trees, and we're due to poor urban planning, right? But on their case, they can collapse any day. They're constantly looking for new ways to make life more sustainable, okay? So that just shows your ignorance when you keep on and on yapping about how the Middle East does not take in refugees. Oh, why don't they take in why don't you take in? Because actually you're the ones who caused all these refugees. Who's the one initiating wars? It's your governments. It's the American government, it's the Israeli government, it's the Western governments. You're the ones responsible for every single war in this world. There's not a single war going on in this world behind which your governments aren't. So it's your responsibility to take in those refugees. It's your responsibility to either you get out of their countries or you take in their people. Seriously, there's just no other way. Either you leave their countries alone and stop looting and plundering them, and stop stealing their system, and stop enforcing your chaotic colonized system, your brutal, uncivilized system onto them. Stop doing that. Leave them alone. Or take responsibility and accept them. It really is as simple as that. So, again, crime rate in Pakistan, as I said, it will increase. It will be more sadistic, it will be more cruel, it will be more brutal. Why? Again, because your government is sustaining and encouraging and financing and directly performing all these crimes, just so that it can continue to maintain a chokehold on us all. They will let loose sick people. They will also cover up many of their own crimes by targeting innocent bystanders and witnesses, call them the perpetrators, kill them in encounters, and pretend that you've got justice. For example, this latest case where they claim to have killed the perpetrator, the same perpetrator whose parents have also now refused to, I mean, they've disowned him. They had to go to 2 to 3 graveyards because each graveyard they went to, they refused to do his burial, they refused to do his funeral. And then, there was this whole, yeah, it's all commendable, but you know what? It's also very suspicious. Since when did our people wake up to this mob mentality? The biggest problem with our country is there is no mob mentality. Every single time there is a mobbing or a lynching incident, you will find out that it has been politically motivated, and you will find out that the people involved even were not your normal average citizens. Whenever they try to create such a hype, look at it with suspicion. First of all, the biggest question that I have is, was that even the perpetrator? Or did they just scapegoat him? After all, they were so quick to kill him. No trial, no due diligence, no investigation. They just suddenly all decided it was him, and then they killed him. And then now there's this big ass production going on. This whole movie is being produced where your dead nation wakes up and says, oh, we're not going to let him be buried here. Oh, we're not going to do his funeral here. Oh, we disown him. He's not our... Like, are you serious? Remember that incident where an apparent mob went after a girl because she was wearing a dupatta that had calligraphy on it? For years, we've been wearing a dupatta with calligraphy on it, and all of a sudden, a mob decided that, oh, she's wearing a calligraphy dupatta on it, and this is haram. You serious? And it was even that time I questioned it, and it was exposed. It was exposed that it was one big, huge drama that was staged. The only one poor person who had no idea that there was this acting going on was the person who was so frightened for her life, the person working at the cafe or the restaurant, who was a non-Muslim, by the way. He just, he tried to protect her, and he closed the door. And obviously only to later find out that the whole thing was staged. Why? To give entrance, to give PR to a female police officer who was without merit or qualification suddenly promoted. It was literally a very bad Punjabi movie scripted. This is another bad Punjabi movie scripted. I'm sorry. Our country, people, my biggest problem, the reason I want to burn this country down to ashes and its people along with it, is the fact that these people are so freaking dead that their own mother would get raped in front of them, and they wouldn't even get up to shoot that person. I'm sorry to say that, but it's a fact. And we have seen how men have just silently allowed their women to be illegally kidnapped by the police, by the army, by the intelligence. We have seen how political workers were threatened, were sexually threatened and assaulted. We have seen it all being done by this very government, this very army, this very police, and in front of their own family members, and their own family members were too cowardly to even step up and say, excuse me, what the fuck, we have seen how whenever they try to assault females while trying to arrest them, whenever there was a peaceful protest, we have seen how a huge crowd of hundreds and thousands of people did not step up to stop them. And you want me to believe that suddenly the parents of that dead boy woke up and said, oh, we disown him, and then suddenly the people at the graveyard woke up and said, oh, we will not get him buried here, and suddenly everybody in the village woke up and they're like, oh yeah, we're good. Yeah, no, sorry, I'm not believing any of it. Listen, granted, I do know that especially in small villages where there's a very small population, people do not dare to commit crimes, number one. Number two, when somebody is found committing a crime, the whole village does come up together against them, but you know what they do? They expel them from the village. Yes, that's what they do. I happen to know that because my house help has told me that this is how they deal with people in order to contain vulgarity, in order to stop that crime or that sin from being from going viral, basically, and from allowing people to think that, oh, this is also acceptable and possible. What the villagers do is that they first try to stop them, and when they see that they're not going to stop, then they literally make it hard for them. And they, in fact, at times they literally tell them that please leave. Just they expel them from the village. Yeah, that is the most that people do. Okay, that is literally how people deal with stuff here in the villages. So yeah, no, sorry. Whenever something is hyped up in this government's term, understand one thing: during this government's term, if anything is hyped up, look at it with a raised brow. Okay, look at it with doubt, look at it with suspicion. That's all I ask. Use your freaking brains. Okay, this is me signing out. Khuda Hafiz.